With me today is Alex Gartner. He's the executive and artistic director of the Pensacola Children's Choir and co-author of a brand new book called The Business of Choir. And we'll be speaking to him today from Florida. And remember, if you enjoy this content, please go ahead and like this video. If you want to be notified of future videos, you can subscribe and click on the bell icon. And thank you for supporting ChoirSuccess while we support the choirs of the world. Alex, great to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't we dive right in? Every project starts for a good reason. What made you decide to write this particular book at this particular time?
Sure. So my co-author, Emmy Williams Burch, and I just come from a unique background of being artistically, musically inclined people who receive formal training in education and in conducting, and now find ourselves as CEO types of choral organizations that operate independently outside of a school or university entity. And as we've grown in our roles, we've really realized that a choir is truly a business in many, many ways. And in order for us as leaders to be the most effective that we can be, we have to get a little bit business savvy. And it's unfortunate, but a lot of our training programs, our teacher training programs, our conductor training programs don't really cover the business elements of running a choir. And as a result of our positions, our colleagues across the country, especially during the pandemic, were reaching out to us, asking us for help with their sort of the business side of things, which was really amplified. Or especially the shortcomings in the business side of things was amplified during the pandemic. And so we were sharing resources left and right. And we finally said, what if we write all this down in a way that is more easy to understand and decipher as a musically inclined individual? There are a lot of resources out there on business principles, but not many that are geared toward the arts, especially choir. So that's why we ultimately wrote the book.
Right. It makes sense. You're kind of you're providing a valuable service, I think, to a lot of people who are in the similar position, because I find that business people generally don't start choirs. If anybody starts a choir, it's going to be a musical person, right? And then they have to find one way or another to fill in the gap of of business skills, right? And so hopefully your book is going to help with that. And so tell me about the ideal reader. By the way, I read the book and I really enjoyed it. It's again, I'll put it up for the audience to see. I ordered it and I read the whole thing, and it was really, really interesting and good. And I'm a business person more than a choral person. I don't have a choral education at all. But yet I find myself in the same space as you. So the book was really great. When you wrote it, who were you imagining as the ideal reader? Who was going to read this book and really get the most out of it?
Yeah, so a lot of our colleagues, like I previously mentioned, including ourselves, are leaders of choirs who primarily have music and conducting backgrounds. And so we envision the reader of this to be kind of like us, which is a pretty typical mold amongst choir directors. We go to our schooling, we get our degrees in music education, we get our degrees in conducting, we are thrown into a classroom. Some of us pop ourselves out of that classroom into the community sphere, and we find ourselves in these administrative roles that we're not prepared for. But the school teachers and the university teachers also have to have this business acumen too, because there's always need to raise funds, build support, grow audiences. Business principles are so woven into the business of choir. And so the ideal reader is truly any choral leader who finds themselves in an administrative capacity and is looking to grow professionally, is looking to grow their choral organization. That's who we were gearing the book for.
Totally makes sense. And also interesting to me is that you have both of the titles, right? Like you're both the artistic director and the executive director, and therefore have the musical and the business hat on. And I know a lot of children's choirs, they divide that between two people. And so how has that affected you? It must be more efficient for your organization in some ways.
So there are a lot of different models that people use in leadership structures, especially in community groups. But the most common one is definitely, as you just said, the artistic director is one thing here and the executive director is over here. And I've worked in that scenario too. Actually, when I started at Pensacola Children's Chorus, I was just the artistic director. And then we had an executive director who retired, and then the board chose to give me that dual role. And I think that model, the artistic and executive model certainly work, but it really is dependent on the personalities of that position, because sometimes you'll have the musical person who really wants to go in this direction, but the executive side's like, oh, we got to think about this. And that can really create some warring tendencies and can create some strife. And so having the dual role is very easy to get work done, but it's certainly effective in both ways. It's just all about how you sort of divide responsibility and get the job done.
Right, absolutely makes sense. And as a quick aside, those people who've been following the channel for a little while will know that I introduced the channel speaking as Welcome to the Business of Choir for the first couple of videos. And then I was talking to our mutual friend, Kirsten Oberoy, and about the channel, and she said, oh yeah, I know a guy who just wrote a book by that exact name. And so ultimately I decided to...
We didn't communicate in advance. We weren't really good about that. We didn't do a good job.
That's right. So I ultimately decided to call it something else, but and I'm happy with the way that worked out, but it was kind of a funny little side story. So let's talk about the book a little bit more specifically. The first section of the book is all about building capacity and support. And it seems like it's mostly about the purpose. It talks about the purpose of the organization. Why don't you talk about that a little bit? What's important about that particular part?
Sure. So the biggest question that I've encountered from my colleagues is, I need to raise more money, or I want to grow in X, Y, and Z. That's usually the first couple things that people want. And there are a lot of quick tips and tricks that you can use to raise a couple bucks here and there. But in order to really get to a position where your organization can truly grow and amplify its mission and its work, you have to really dig down deep into what the true core of your organization is and really explore that from multiple lenses. The dangerous thing that happens in the musical sphere, in the musical world, especially in choir, is that we often think that everybody in the world understands intrinsically the importance of singing and the importance of choir.
Especially if you're coming from the perspective of a person who went through and got a choral education, that's definitely true, right? Because you do understand it that way, and yet you're not your own customer sometimes, yeah?
Correct. And we surround ourselves with choir directors so that we tend to just leech onto one another, and these are our social sphere. And so we can just talk constantly, a stream of consciousness about the incredible things that happen in choir. But when we try and get out of our conference spheres, we get out of our hotel bars, and we have to go back home to our communities where there are people who would be willing to support us, whether it's financially, with their time, with their talent. And when we go to talk to these people, sometimes it feels like you're talking to a blank wall because we don't have the words necessarily to accurately describe the importance of what we do with someone who doesn't already know and deep down what it means.
Right.
And so the first section is really sort of breaking down the core values of choral singing, specific to your organization, right down to the bottom, and finding ways to intersect that value with different people in your community. Mm-hmm. Trying to sort of put choral music into the vernacular, finding a way for people to get on board with you without having to use the words like artistic excellence, high quality singing, tone quality musicianship, all these lofty words that make a lot of sense to us, but to the lay person, the non-singer,
right,
it's kind of hard to define.
So it's really, why should I care, right? And putting it in their perspective, yeah, from their point of view. Right.
Section one of the book would definitely be whittled down to why should I?
Yeah, that's right. It's a different way of writing it. Does your choir, you viewer, have a well-defined purpose that you're happy with? Why don't you write it into the comments below along with the name of your group, and you can share it with the whole world. All right. So the second section of the book, making our way through, is called Empowering Your People. And so which people are you referring to, and how are you empowering them?
Yeah. So in the world of choir, the role of choir director can be a very lonely one. We often find ourselves wearing so many hats with different responsibilities. And in order to help your organization grow and make a bigger impact, we have to bring a lot of people on board with us. So it's not just finding your singers. This section really dives into how to empower your volunteers, how to get along well with your board of directors, how to recruit and retain your singers as well. And it really also talks about the principles of leadership, sort of that taking away the podium aspect of a choir director and talking about our role as the sort of cultivator of our organizational culture and how all of that trickles down to every single person that comes down and supports our organizations. So that's why choir is about people. It's intrinsically about people. Mm-hmm. And so that section is really about making sure that everybody is on board working toward the same goal.
Right. And it makes sense that it would follow the section talking about purpose then, because if you've got a whole bunch of people who share that purpose and who have bought into that, it must be much easier to do all of the mechanics of managing and aligning all these people towards that goal. And so the third section is called Telling Your Story, and yet when I read through it, it has a lot to do with measurement and numbers, and those are the three sections, right? There's purpose, there's kind of alignment, and now we have measurement and numbers called Telling Your Story. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so there is, I find commonly with choir directors is that we sort of judge our success based on the repertoire, the difficulty of repertoire that we are singing, the overall tone quality that we are presenting, and sort of the prestigious concerts that we present. Mm-hmm. And those are really great milestones for any choir that matter only in the choral world.
Yeah, very true.
Outside of the choir world, that stuff doesn't really make sense. It doesn't resonate with people. And so when people are looking to support a choir, or when you're looking to attract or recruit or fundraise, you have to have some pretty good, compelling data in order to back up your claims. If you're saying that choir is transformative and life-changing, you should enroll your singers in my program, you better have some data to back that up, because the proof is in the pudding. So the three sections in there talk about marketing and talk about finance, mm-hmm. how your organizational financial foundation supports your work. And then it also talks about evaluation, sort of this culture of data gathering and being able to share out and evaluate how well you are actually doing your work. Because then at the end of that, we get to circle right back around to section 1, which is all about defining your value and communicating it. So when you have all of the three elements together, you can make a really compelling case for support and grow your choir.
Oh, really good, really good. And I understand that you and perhaps your co-author, Emily Burch, will be promoting this book at some choral conferences in the coming season. Where can people find you?
Absolutely, yes. So just in a few weeks of our Florida friends, we are presenting 2 sessions at the Florida Music Education Association, one of the larger MEAs in the United States. And our publisher, GIA Publications, will be presenting there, but they'll also be presenting at the American Choral Directors National Conference. Our book will be featured there, and we will be around that conference as well. We are hoping, fingers crossed, that we'll be presenting at the Chorus America Conference. I believe that's in June. We have a lot of little feelers out there. We're going to be on the docket for a lot of state conferences here in the next couple years. So we're really looking forward to talking with our colleagues across the United States and Canada and even the world about the business of choir.
That's very good. That's very good. Alex, I really want to thank you not just for being on the show, but also for writing this book. It's really clear to me that we have a common mission in life, and I want to thank you for your contribution to making choirs better.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all you're doing with this channel to help get the word out far and wide.
Thank you. And thank you for watching the channel. If you haven't already, go ahead and like this video. You can subscribe to be notified of future videos. And my name's Tom Metzger, and I hope your day is full of singing.